Hey guys, this is Matt Miller with PolitiBrawl News. Watch Megyn Kelly put this New York Times reporter in her place and explain to her what real journalism is. Watch it right here.
I just want to understand something clearly. Donald Trump was found liable for sexual abuse in a civil court. He's been accused by many women. You don't believe any of that?
I think the most serious thing I've heard about him has been the Megyn Kelly allegation that he sexually assaulted her in a Bergdorf dressing room. And I don't believe one word of that.
There's
Not
many.
one word.
There are other women who have
Oh,
said.
I know. I've interviewed some of them. But look, the things I heard were included things like he got handsy on an airplane. Now, I don't know whether that happened or it didn't. But do I find that a deal breaker for a possible politician? Not really. At least I reported on their stories and did them the courtesy of bringing them to air in front of millions of people and let the audience make up its mind. My problem is more with these Democrats who will bury these allegations against their candidates or their candidates' spouses and then play holier than thou when they're looking at Donald Trump.
Do you see yourself as a journalist still? Or would you not describe yourself
No,
like
I'm
that
still
anymore?
a journalist. I mean, I break news all the time. And when I sit with Trump or anybody else in the administration, I ask tough questions. I mean, as recently as September of 23, I interviewed Trump and he got so mad at me, he didn't talk to me for 6 or 7 months. So it's not, look, it's a tough job to do. You have to be able to hit the people you admire. And I do. You know, I've hit them all. Right before the election, I ripped on Trump's Madison Square Garden rally as too brotastic and got specific about why. You have to understand, like, if you haven't sold your soul, you have to be willing to criticize the people, even you, that you admire on your, quote, side. And my owning my bias by going out there on stage with Donald Trump and saying, I'm voting for him and you should too, is a bonus when it comes to my credibility. Now, everybody has zero doubt about where I stand, and they can filter everything I say through the appropriate lens. What typically happens in journalism is they say they have no bias, and then they just work it out in the printed word or on their shows without owning it. But the audience knows it, and it creates a distrust and a divide. When it comes to Trump and me, no, my own personal opinion is most of the allegations against him are much more complicated than the mainstream media would have you believe. And I don't think Donald Trump is a rapist or a sexual assaulter. I do think he's taken inappropriate liberties with women and gotten handsy with them in a way he's owned himself. Okay, years ago when he was a celebrity, and it is what it is. That's the past. But it's just about so much more than that. We are talking about how many people dying at the southern border because of the invasion that we've suffered under Joe Biden. We're talking about Laken Riley, whose killer was let in under Biden. We put him on a taxpayer flight down to Georgia where he murdered her. I don't give a shit about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago. I want someone who will close the border, which he has. I want someone who will keep boys out of my daughter's sports, which he has. I want someone who will stand up to the insane DEI policies so that white kids will stop hearing in school that they're born with some original sin from which they cannot recover, which he has.
I think Megyn Kelly makes a great point, and I'm right there with her on this. If the worst thing that Trump has ever done is made bad comments, comments that are now considered out of line, like the Access Hollywood tape that came out, the locker room talk, or if way back in the 80s he got handsy with somebody and then later apologized for it and he's owned it, as Megyn Kelly has said here, there are bigger things on the table. There are much, much more important things. And if Donald Trump is the presidential candidate and now the president that is actually going to take action for the American people and deal with problems like millions of people coming into our country who we don't know who they are. Some of them are criminals, some of them are rapists, some of them are gang members or cartel members. They're here to traffic drugs, fentanyl, cocaine, other terrible things. They're here to traffic people, human trafficking on the southern border. He's the guy who believes in controlling the border and putting an end to all of that. The border crisis has been a massive, inhumane disaster that the Biden administration has let go on. So what's worse, somebody making some bad comments or somebody letting in millions of people and denying America the right to defend its border and to protect itself? I mean, to me, there's no comparison. The other things that she's mentioned, Trump is taking action for protecting women's rights to fair athletic competition, women's rights to privacy in private female-only areas. He's stopped the woke agenda, which we know comes from the ivory tower academics, the Marxists, the socialists, the people who want to undermine American traditions and Western civilization as we know it. The church, our religion, everything, all of our values. These people are corrupt and vile, and they have an ideology that's looking to undermine everything that we hold sacred in this country. And they're going after our kids. They're trying to brainwash our kids, make them confused about different things in ways that are permanent. And Trump sees that, and he's taking action to address that. So it's just the things that Trump is good for, the things that he is actually accomplishing right now and has accomplished are up here. The things that he may or may not have done that the Democrats are trying to allege really are down here. I mean, because it affects the entire country. It affects the safety and well-being of children. It affects the safety and well-being of women across this country, of all of our communities. Just imagine the sanctuary cities that have spent billions of dollars, like New York City, to house migrants. And you saw crime spike around these migrant shelters. They would take old historic hotels and convert them into migrant shelters where gangs like Tren de Aragua would fester and take over the area. And the NYPD could barely handle the situation because it was so bad. And this was all being facilitated by the Democrats that run those cities and endorsed and given the thumbs up by the Biden administration, this was their border policy. It's disgusting, and it had tangible negative results, tangible negative consequences for American citizens. This stuff is horrendous, it's unforgivable, and we need to take rapid action to undo it. And that's what the Trump administration has been doing so far. So Megyn Kelly's point is to this New York Times journalist who is obviously woke and doesn't have her priorities set straight as a journalist, telling her, look, there are more important things than you trying to nitpick and find, look under every single pebble in Trump's life to try to paint him as this bad guy, this evil dictator villain, which it's just not the case. They've thrown so much at him and none of it has stuck. He's a human being. He's going to make mistakes. He's not always going to say the right thing. But all in all, he's doing the right thing for the American people. Let me know if you guys agree with what Megyn Kelly said here. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for your support here at PolitiBrawl, and I'll see you next time.